Football season is back. The San Francisco 49ers play football Monday night at Levi Stadium against the New York Jets. We've got updates on injuries. And finally, let's put this offseason to bed. Join Brian Peacock and I right after this. Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Brian Peacock. This is another episode of Peacock and Aponte. Before we get into everything that's going on with the 49ers, Brian, the most important question is, how are you?
I'm doing amazing. I'm doing fantastic. Feeling good. Saw some real NFL football last night, and we're about to see a whole lot more and get a chance to see the new addition, right? What does it look like with the new players on the field for every team? You see rookies out there. You see new free agent additions. There's some questions I have about this football team and how it comes together for the 49ers. What's Aaron Rodgers going to look like? Hopefully he's healthy. I want to see healthy Aaron Rodgers and see what that Jets team can look like and see how the 49ers stack up against a team that I think will be pretty good if there is a healthy, somewhere near Hall of Fame still level quarterback. That's a good test to start out the 2024 season, man. So I'm pumped for some football, and hopefully we see some really good football on Monday, and we can put this offseason to bed.
Absolutely, and that's what we're here to do on this show. But also, this week one slate has a bunch of games that are very interesting or compelling. You know, you think about last night, Ravens-Chiefs, which is a rematch of the AFC Championship game. Rams-Lions, Sunday Night Football, which is going to be absolutely, interesting. And then Jets-Niners, it's funny, the unfortunate injury that happened to Aaron Rodgers happens with Leonard Floyd falling on him, and Leonard Floyd is now a 49er, so they get to link up again. Fun little fact, fun little stat. Aaron Rodgers' teams in his last 10 Monday Night Football games are 10-0 because even after Aaron Rodgers left that game, Zach Wilson found a way to get it done against the Buffalo Bills. So kind of like unstoppable force meets an immovable object on Monday.
Yeah, it's the number one. I think I got this stat right. Yards per play. It was the number one offense in the NFL in the San Francisco 49ers against the number one defense in the NFL in the New York Jets last year. So number one versus number one. Good on good. That's what it's all about. Like, this is a good defense, and these are both good offenses, and there's dynamic players on both sides of the ball. I love Garrett Wilson. I think he's an up-and-coming superstar wide receiver in the NFL. Breece Hall is a beast. Maybe the two best running backs in the league with Hall and Christian McCaffrey right now. Both can make home run plays. Both can catch the ball out of the backfield. And, and two future Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, absolutely. That's how we're rolling. Peacock covered with the fire. But
I made that joke on our crossover talking with John Butchko, the host of Locked On Jets, and we do a weekly crossover every week on Locked On 49ers with the host from the opposing teams. And I dropped that same joke on my co-host Eric Crocker and John Butchko. Nothing, man.
No,
I'm glad
that's a good one. Yeah, that's a great one. Honestly, you know what? I think the comedic aspect of your talent is largely underrated. I think that is something that needs a ton more love, and it landed immediately. That one did not flop.
That's the best comp. I don't care what you think about my football acumen. As long as the jokes are landing, that means the most to me. And I usually tell them with a straight face. So, and some people get it, some people don't. And I always. I do this on the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, by the way, daily on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you're subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And I really go overboard with the Brock Purdy stuff, especially. And it's hilarious to be in the YouTube comments like, dude, this guy Peacock's crazy. He's talking crazy about Brock Purdy and all. And I'm like, dude, do you not get jokes? Like, I like Brock Purdy. I think he's awesome, but I really pile it on because I want to overdo it because of how much hate he gets and people who don't believe in Brock Purdy. So I lay it on thick, and I purposely lay it on extra thick. And some people, man, they just don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, sense of humor is a large part of showing intelligence, and I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. But this offseason has been very crazy. The last time you and I spoke, we were breaking down Brandon Ayuk's extension. Well, a few days later, another old friend is back in town, and Trent Williams is back in the building and looks like he's ready to go for Monday night. And Christian McCaffrey is working through the scariest way that Kyle did something yesterday that's hilarious, right? He said, well, it's a calf Achilles, and it's been that, and it's just like, okay, do you want to give us all a heart attack because, the calf is connected to the Achilles? Everybody starts running to like Kevin Durant, all that stuff. And it's like today, everything seems like after practice, that everything was moving in the right direction, but the offseason is done. And then you toss in the unfortunate situation with Ricky Pearsall. It's been a wild offseason, and to be able to focus on right now, just football seems like a blessing a little bit. So it can knock all other distractions out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like all the distractions, all the BS that happened all off season long. And, would people get traded? And is somebody going to come back? Is somebody going to sign? Is somebody going to be back at practice? And to have a pretty whole team minus Ricky Pearsall, which I think has an opportunity to be a pretty galvanizing event for the 49ers, a rallying point for the San Francisco 49ers. And luckily it turned out as good as you could possibly get news-wise and health-wise for Ricky Pearsall getting shot in the chest. What you worry about when you instantly hear that story, it's like this guy could have lost his life. Yeah. And the fact that he is going to make a full recovery, it looks like. And John Lynch was on the radio today saying he will play this season. They're going to be smart with him. He's going to be out for at least 4 weeks. His bullet wound in the chest is going to heal faster than his shoulder that he's been dealing with for 6 months. Like it's pretty insane. But like I want to see Ricky Pearsall out there right next to Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel. And who knows, just let Ricky Pearsall carry the boombox. Maybe like I want to see him come out of the tunnel. And I'm so ready to put the offseason to bed and put real football at the forefront. And it was so fun watching the stupid ass Chiefs win a football game last night. My son, my 6-year-old son, I try not to push him too far down a certain lane, but he knows I do a podcast about the 49ers. He's 6. He doesn't know a lot about football, but he gets excited for it sometimes. And sometimes he gets real bored real quick and wants to go play something else when a football game comes on. But he knows the 49ers are the good guys. He knows that's the team, right? And the game was coming on. It's like, hey, Leo, the NFL season is kicking off tonight. It's the first game of the year. And he's like, oh, are the 49ers playing? And I was like, no, it's the Chiefs and the Ravens. He's like, oh, I don't like the Chiefs. And I'm like,
you're
okay,
raising him right.
He's one of us. I like it. It was still fun to watch the Chiefs, even though they were victorious. And I like to root for their demise. And I don't want to see a three-peat. Seeing Xavier Worthy out there making a huge contribution in 3 touches, 2 touchdowns. I mean, it's kind of wild what the league allowed the Chiefs to do. Suamataia, not perfect, holding his own out there at left tackle. He was out in front, actually. If you watch that Xavier Worthy touchdown run, Suamataia was out in front, made the final block on Roquan Smith to spring that thing for a touchdown. And so seeing him get out on the move, and he lost a couple reps, but he's a rookie offensive tackle. And seeing the Baltimore Ravens and Isaiah Likely doing big things, and Lamar being Lamar. And I really worry about Lamar Jackson. Talks about this with Matt Williamson today on the Peacock and Williamson shows. Like Lamar's not going to last 17 games if they're going to be that Lamar Jackson centric. Like
if he has to run for 100 yards a game,
entire offense, he threw it 41 times and ran another 16 times. Like you got Derrick Henry supposed to be the workhorse. He only carried it 13 times. You got Justice Hill playing as bigger role as Derrick Henry. And even with 2 tight ends that are both really good, you still feel like they're short something on offense. So, again, week 1, it's a small sample. It's 1 game. We'll see how this all comes together for all these teams, but it's just so fun to watch real, actual NFL football. And it's going to be so hard to wait for Monday night to watch that 49ers-Jets game. And now we can put all that silly business to rest in the offseason.
And speaking of players that the 49ers should have had, Roger Rosengarten got a very welcome to the NFL. His first snap. His first snap.
Hey, look, Roger Rosengarten on the field. Up, strip sack.
Oh, Chris Jones rip move and swim move. I was like, he'll never forget that rep. And that's how you get introduced to the NFL very quickly.
It's not easy. And like, if we're going to talk about matchups and start talking about this football game, can we talk about the 49ers rookie guard in Dominic Puni? I mean, he gets a good draw right out of the gate. And this isn't, the Raiders' second team offensive line. This is Quinnen Williams, one of the better interior defensive linemen in the NFL. And I don't know if he's going to be going up against him every snap all game long on the interior of the Jets defensive line, but it's a big ask for a rookie to come out and play right away in the NFL. And so that's going to be one of the matchups I'm watching. And if the 49ers can win that matchup, it'll go a long way in making sure Brock Purdy's upright, making sure they're able to run the football and come out with the W.
Yeah, it's been a long offseason. So just to be able to talk about matchups just feels like, okay, now we're away from that now. We understand everything that's going on. Again, Ricky Pearsall, heal up, man. We're going to see you soon, it looks like. But in terms of going into this game, today, Yetur Gross-Matos and D. Winters not practicing. It seems like they're not going to play on Monday. Christian McCaffrey, full go. Nick Sorensen just spoke at the podium, and the question that I had, and I have to literally edit the article now, what to watch for on Monday was the secondary rotation. Is this going to become a situation where it's Lenoir and Mooney on the outside, and then on third down, nickel situations, does Lenoir kick inside? And Nick Sorensen kind of spoiled it for me. I got to go back and edit this thing because he said it's Isaac Yiadom. If it comes down to that, not that Yiadom is probably going to start over Lenoir, but I would guess in those situations, Yiadom goes outside and Lenoir goes inside. So I guess we got our answer when it comes to the secondary, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the way to play it. And Diamador Lenoir is so good at doing both, but he's clearly their best nickel, and nickel just gets more important every single season. And we saw how much the middle of the field played a role last night in the Chiefs and Ravens game. And so offensive coordinators are trying to hit the middle of the field, and Diamador Lenoir is going to be that guy this year. And he's going to move around, play outside, play in the slot. And I like what I saw from Isaac Yiadom on the outside. I think he's a stopgap guy, bridge player. Hopefully Renardo Green is that guy long-term for the 49ers. Yiadom's only on a 1-year contract, but good reports from my guy Ross Jackson, the host of Locked On Saints, talking about Yiadom and about the 49ers got a good one and a little bit of a steal in free agency to bring in Yiadom and give themselves someone who has the starting capability at cornerback, because that's not always super easy to find. So I really like the depth the 49ers have at cornerback right now when you have Green and Rock Ya-Sin behind all those guys. But Diamador Lenoir, man, he might be playing himself into a real nice contract. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't mind if that happened before kickoff and get him locked up, because I think he's one of the big priorities, other than the quarterback next offseason as far as free agent contracts.
Yeah, and again, kind of lost in the offseason part is Ayuk's extension creates more cap space. They restructure Malik Collins. They restructure Deebo Samuel to a way that they're putting all this cap space out there, which, at first you could say, well, the 49ers are in line to make a move, whatever they want, like during the season. Yes, that's probably true, but I think the idea is to roll all that over with the cap increase and try to figure out where you are there, because you do have a lot of players that you need to resign and a lot of tough decisions to make next season.
Yeah, and the 49ers have been doing this year after year. It happened last year right before the season. Eric Armstead, a few other guys that got restructured, and a lot of people thought, oh, man, this is what are they clearing space for? Is there some big move coming? No, they're rolling it over. And, you can turn a $250 million salary cap into a $300 million salary cap for you next year if you keep rolling this stuff over. And they want to keep rolling it over because they've got a lot of guys to pay it, and they need to kind of raise the ceiling of their own personal salary cap by doing this rollover maneuver. So I love it for the 49ers. It allows them to pay more real dollars for the players on their roster and keep more guys around. And they're able to make Trent Williams a higher paid offensive tackle. They're able to make Christian McCaffrey a higher paid running back than they already were. And so, as long as they can keep it going and it doesn't all collapse like a house of cards with the gymnastics with the salary cap, then it's all good. At some point, they might not be able to pull it off if there's a season where they have to pay too much current dollars and aren't able to roll as much over. But clearly, that's their strategy, is they want to clear as much space as they can to start a season, and they can roll it over into the next season. So, and that's one of the weird stories that kind of came about this week as well, Jason, about ownership and do they pay enough money? Like Jed York pays more money to his players than any owner in the league right now. They're the only team in the NFL that has a top 10 salary offense and a top 10 salary defense. They're about to pay a quarterback a whole bunch of money. They're paying multiple stars at tons of different positions. So go ask some other teams around the league if they would like the 49ers coaching staff that people are trying to say is on the hot seat and losing a Super Bowl, with teams that haven't been to a playoff in a decade, right? Ask those fans if they would like Kyle Shanahan. Ask those fans if they would like different ownership, like the DeBartolo York family. And, there's been some weird moments with that ownership, but that storyline seems like a really silly one right now going into this year with how good the 49ers are and have been.
Yeah, ask the Dallas Cowboys fan how they feel about how Jerry Jones is spending. I mean, look at their running back room. Their running back room is a shell of its former person, maybe somebody who could play, and Royce Freeman. There's other teams, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. This is a top 4 valuable franchise in all of sports. So yes, it can absolutely be worse, 100%. Again, look. The team is doing what they think is best right now to run it back. I feel like they improved themselves with this draft class as well, too. I don't see how you can see it any other way, even if none of these guys have taken real NFL snaps. This is probably the most excited you've been about a draft class in how long? And then you have another draft class next season to build upon. There's going to be some players that probably walk. Obviously you have to make decisions, and teams are going to make offers that are very generous to those players because they deserve it. And those tough decisions will have to be made. But for the most part, I don't know what you want the 49ers to do more this offseason than what they've done by improving this team with the free agent moves that they have. In certain spots, I think the defensive line isn't as deep as it's been, for a long time. But again, when you fortify the secondary, then that can take care of that. But when you talk about draft class and the team that you brought back, I don't know how you can look at this team and say that they're not improved, with the idea that there could be a player a la Chase Young or somebody out there halfway through the season that if you make a move, he's not going to count towards your cap next season as well. If you need some more reinforcements, the 49ers are set up just fine. And I think it's hard to argue otherwise when it comes to how they're building things and how things are moving and what they're trying to do to put themselves in the best position next offseason, regardless of what happens.
No doubt. And there's going to have to be more tough decisions next offseason. They asked a couple of guys to take pay cuts this offseason. Eric Armstead and Kyle Juszczyk. Kyle Juszczyk's like, okay, I guess I'll do that. And Eric Armstead is like, nope. And they're like, okay, I understand. And so he's somewhere else. And so there's going to be some real I don't want to say cap casualties, but there's going to be some real decisions that the 49ers have to make going forward. And and they're going to get a little older. So maybe some of those decisions are made for them with players that fall off or drop off or age out too. So we'll see, but hopefully they're able to keep this thing going, even though this feels like the year and the Super Bowl window is the widest it's going to be right now. They need to keep the window open and not have a complete collapse. And I think rolling over cash is a big part of that. I have a real quick question for you, because we talked about Yadam and the 49ers depth chart. Were you a little bit surprised with the other depth chart news we got this week that Brandon Allen won the backup quarterback job over Joshua Dobbs? I thought Dobbs charged late in camp and especially late in the preseason and ended up winning that job. And I know Allen was definitely the guy to start, but those last couple preseason games, I thought Dobbs might have won it.
Yeah, a little bit surprised, especially considering that the 49ers are a run-first team, right? And then you have a backup quarterback who can run the football with his own legs and cause issues with zone read and has been proven to win games much more recently than Brandon Allen has. I'd like to get a little bit more insight into what led to that decision. Is it grasp on the offense? Is it just how he wants him to play? But I'm just thinking, like, if there is a one-game scenario, and realistically, 49er fans, we fight all the time about quarterback too, because we're shell-shocked when it comes to, injuries at the quarterback position. Realistically, other teams don't care who their backup is, because the idea is that the backup never plays. But I do kind of understand the game plan with Dobbs, where it would be, yeah, if we're a run-first team, now we have a guy who can use his legs as well. We can run some RPOs, zone reads, everything that he can kind of do. You understand that he has a grasp on the offense. I mean, the guy's he's a fucking astronaut, right? Like, I mean, he has to be smart, it's I need a little bit more insight into what led to that decision, because I feel like Dobbs can fit in and not have him change too many other things, whereas Allen, it'll just be straight drop back handoffs, and you can get a little creative when it comes to Dobbs when he's in there.
Yeah, just clearly more dynamic and being able to make plays with his legs. I'm sure it had to do with just timing and the fact that Allen's been around and knows the offense a little better.
Right.
He was probably just quicker with decisions and just kind of was more – Kyle just trusted him to run the offense the way he wants it to run it right away more than Dobbs. I think that's probably as simple as it ended up being. And we'll see. Hopefully we won't see. Hopefully we'll never see one of those guys take a snap unless they're kneeling down at the end of a game or after the 49ers get the 1 seed and playing a week 18 matchup.
100%. And that's the thing. It's like it's a discussion that I guess it shouldn't be as loud because again, nobody else really cares about the quarterback too. Like in most cases, you just want to keep your quarterback upright. I mean, obviously circumstances will change that, but never a dull moment here in 49ers land. I want to ask you this because we already started talking about matchups. Christian McCaffrey, calf Achilles, right? You hear calf Achilles, you feel like, okay, why are you saying Achilles? Achilles is a scary word. Calf, can be a little annoying. But the usage going into this game for Christian McCaffrey. And what I mean by that is not necessarily the amount of snaps is, I'm going to toss something out to you, is maybe, and the Jets' run defense last season wasn't very good at all. Let's just be frank, right? Like they're kind of, it's funny, all the talk about the 49ers run defense, and it was still like a top 10 run defense, and the Jets are like at the bottom of the league, and everyone's like, the 49ers have to fix their run defense. Yes, they do, but it's never as dire as you think it is. Like with the Jets feel the same way.
Specifically, and the 49ers had a little problem with this last year as well, as tackling. And that's where the 49ers really shine with McCaffrey and Debo. Like this is a Debo game all day for me because I don't think Brandon Ayuk's going to have a full complement of snaps. I don't know if it's going to be 70%, 50%. It's probably not going to be 100%. We know that Kyle Shanahan loves himself some Debo Samuel and loves to dial those up. But then you have the Christian McCaffrey calf injury. Are they going to lean as heavily on the game plan with McCaffrey as they will with Debo Samuel? And then you probably have Sauce drawing Brandon Ayuk when he's in the game in coverage too. So to me, this is a big Debo Samuel game. And if you told me that Debo Samuel is going to break some big runs and have a big touchdown or something, I really like the 49ers chances in this game for that reason.
And the question that I have, and this is just me, with my, non-NFL head coach coordinator mind, could we see Christian McCaffrey get split out a little bit more wide at times with Jordan Mason on the field and get him in space against linebackers? I mean, Rashee Rice, Andy Reid just had Rashee Rice dice up every single linebacker that the Ravens had. It's about creating mismatches. I wonder if there's a way to be careful with Christian McCaffrey, but keep his impact on the field as a pass catcher and go against these linebackers who are no slouch. By the way, the Jets have a great linebacking core, but in terms of covering running backs in space, especially a running back like Christian McCaffrey, I'll take that matchup all the time. I wonder if there's a little bit more of that we're maybe not thinking of going into Monday.
I've talked about this all offseason, and it's a little bit more of a post Debo world where I do think that it'd be beneficial to everybody, including Christian McCaffrey's longevity of his career, that Christian McCaffrey becomes the next wideback. And I think we can see some of that transition start now. Now, maybe there's a little bit too much crossover with a healthy Debo Samuel and what he already can do, but getting McCaffrey in the passing game and getting him matched up out there and making plays is a huge weapon for the 49ers. And I would love to see Kyle Shanahan lean into that more and keep Christian McCaffrey fresh and let a 220-pound back in JP Mason, who's really good. I've been driving the bandwagon for Jordan Mason his entire career. I've have him on my fantasy teams. And then this year I finally couldn't draft him on my fantasy team. And this is the year they're probably going to finally use him because now he's truly running back too if they ever take Christian McCaffrey off the field. But it just makes too much sense to utilize Jordan Mason as a bit of a closer if you're up big, or to lighten the load on Christian McCaffrey and lean into Christian McCaffrey's receiving ability more and let somebody else carry the rock a little bit more. It just makes too much sense. And it's funny because every draft season, you see scouting reports that talk about this year was Malachi Corley. And, there's always some wide receiver. It's like, oh, this guy's the next Debo, right? And, Debo's so unique. And we always learn. It's like, oh, yeah, guess what? Oh, Laviska Shenault, turns out he's not the next Debo, right?
Literally was about to say his name.
Never happens. But literally the closest player in the NFL to Debo Samuel is probably Christian McCaffrey. Mm-hmm. So the 49ers have Debo and the next Debo. Right.
And then you think about, I think Brandon Ayuk is somebody who's probably not going to play the full complement of snaps. I think Kyle even said in the press conference, I'd be shocked. Trent Williams has to play every single snap because he's an offensive lineman. He can't get off the field. Like, that's completely different. But there may be a world where, you see a little package of Conley at X, Debo as Z, McCaffrey on the inside a little bit, and you're still able to utilize those matchups. And if you have to throw Chris Conley out there and Sauce Gardner goes to him, then you know what? You sacrifice him to Sauce, and you take your chances everywhere else with all the other matchups. I still think there's a lot of ways the 49ers can exploit this good Jets defense just simply by putting people in position to win with matchups. And it doesn't necessarily mean the Jets have a bad defense, but if you're talking about a linebacker on Christian McCaffrey, or you're going to get a linebacker on George Kittle, I'll take that matchup 10 out of 10 times.
Absolutely. You turn 21 personnel into 11 personnel, right? You run out there with a couple of running backs, whether it's use check or even I would love the dual halfback with Jordan Mason and Christian McCaffrey. And then all of a sudden you motion Caffrey from the backfield to the slot. Well, you just changed the entire picture. You changed the entirety of what you might do to that defense and earn yourself some matchups. And so I would love to see the 49ers do that a ton more. And, they already do some of that, but man, the dual halfback thing, I think it could be the new rage in the NFL. I saw Washington doing a little bit of that with Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler in the backfield at the same time with Jaden Daniels, who's a dynamic running quarterback, right? You could have some fun there, and we'll see how much fun Cliff Kingsbury has. He wasn't a good head coach. Maybe he'll be a better offensive coordinator. I don't know, but the positionless football, and it's why the slot defenders are so important, because you have to be able to defend positionless guys in front, and you have to be able to support the run and cover. And there's not that many of those linebackers that can do that in the NFL, and you got to take advantage of it. And I think it's the biggest cheat code going right now in the NFL is putting a guy who's a good route runner in the slot and dicing up a guy who's a bad coverage guy on the defensive side of the ball in the middle of the field.
100%. 25 minutes in, over 200 people in here. Guys, make sure you like this video, subscribe to both channels, Brian Peacock's channel, Overtime. Obviously, you guys know Locked On. Lots to talk about now. I think the most interesting thing to talk about is Robert Saleh against Kyle Shanahan. And listening back to the Playmakers podcast, which I love that podcast, by the way, and I'm not even telling you, I'm not even promoted to tell you this. I think it was just so insightful to hear from McVay, McDaniel, Saleh, all the Shanahan tree, essentially.
Play callers, right?
Play callers. Sorry, Playmakers. Play callers. And the times where the mood was described between Kyle and Robert Saleh in meetings and in practice, intense, almost came to blows. And Kyle would continue to press Robert Saleh and ask him for the answers, and not what the answer is, how'd you get to the answer? And they would go at each other. Kyle has had a very good track record against his disciples, but man, a defensive guy against the offensive guy, and they already have that there. I am so intrigued with this chess match back and forth.
Yeah, because most of his disciples are offensive guys, and not as many. Now he's got a couple. His tree is growing, because you don't see that very often. You see a lot of, coaches from one side of the ball come from an organization. We've seen a lot of defensive coaches come from the Belichick tree, and one or two offensive coaches, but a lot of defensive coaches, but none of them are ever Belichick. And Kyle Shanahan's proteges have had much more success than Bill Belichick's, and even a much shorter amount of time. And McVay is really good. And Mike McDaniel is really good. DeMeco Ryans is really good. And I think Robert Saleh is underrated because he's had garbage quarterback play the whole time he's been in New York, but the defenses have been good. And so, yeah, I can't wait for it. And Jeff Ulbricht's actually the play caller for the Jets. But, he's also a really good coach. And obviously, Robert Saleh's got a big part of the game plan, and he knows Kyle. So it's going to be a fun chess match. And Kyle's done a great job against coaches he's worked with before, because I think he knows how they think as much or more than they know how he thinks. So it's going to be fascinating. I can't wait for it. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Are you in Hoboken?
Terry Wilson says Hoboken in the house. That's the hometown, gang. That's the hometown, man. I was there last night watching the football game, man. Terry, you got to let me know, man. Sunday we outside because the 49ers don't play. But yeah, Hoboken in the house, man. Yeah, so I think, all right. You look at the secondary. Obviously, Sauce, DJ Reed, hello, old friend. Michael Carter's very good as well, too, and they just extended him, And then you look at the linebacker core, Mosley, right? And then obviously Quinton Williams, and thank God Hassan Reddick is not going to play in this game. I think Colton McKivitz has a chance to really build up some good confidence based on the fact that it's going to be Jermaine Johnson and a litany of other guys. Hello, Javon Kinlaw. by the way, as well too. Hello, Isaiah Oliver. My God, it's a whole bunch of old friends, huh?
Look, when you put it that way, are you worried about going up against Javon Kinlaw and Solomon Thomas and Isaiah Oliver?
No.
DJ Reed's pretty good. He's one that got away from the 49ers, but 49ers weren't too upset when the other guys went somewhere else. So
and that's just a numbers game. That when it came down to that, like it's just again, and then again, the Jets initially when Saleh was over there, they brought everything over from the 49ers offense, right? They had a guy who was like experienced with them as well too. They wanted to run outside zone, do all that type of stuff. It's just interesting to see like opposite coasts, almost the same kind of philosophy in very many ways. And a lot of the guys that Saleh was able to at least see a little bit or look, they were just like, hey, we got to get our hands on them. And that's kind of how it goes, like with coaches from different places. I mean, we've seen, D'Amico finally lands Azeez Al-Shaair and he brings Jimmy Ward. And it's just like the guys that you're able to get your hands on that you've been able to be with are more likely to fit for you. So, I mean, am I worried about any of them? No, but I completely understand why the Jets would be the first destination.
Well, Javon Kinlaw is going to make one play because that's like his thing, right? He flashes and does one thing where like, oh, this guy's a monster, and everyone gets excited, and then he just like disappears the rest of the game, and so we'll see if Javon Kinlaw can find some consistency with the New York Jets, but he was always a maddening player because, he would like blow up the backfield on one play and then just get completely opened up like a swinging gate on another play. And you're like, you're too big and strong to be getting turned like that, man. What are you doing? And it's just like so maddeningly inconsistent was Javon Kinlaw. And so, we'll see what he ends up looking like. But he's a monster inside. And it wouldn't surprise me if he forklifts Dominic Pooney on one play, but just as long as he doesn't do it all game, that's the problem.
Yeah, and his Jets defense would be much more scary with Hassan Reddick, right? Like they essentially flipped, Reddick for their guy last year.
Bryce Huff, and they lost a lot of sacks, and they did not replace those if Hassan Reddick's not on the field. And it's funny because I didn't think about this angle of it, but I when we were doing our crossover podcast with John Butchko, who covers the Jets, and I didn't think about the Leonard Floyd angle with Aaron Rodgers, but Leonard Floyd was in on the play when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, and Hassan Reddick's the guy that got Brock Purdy hurt. And so huge win for the 49ers to get Trent Williams back and the Jets not get Hassan Reddick. So big wins right now for the San Francisco 49ers as far as that trade-off goes.
Hell yeah. And Colton McKivitz, this is your best shot to build some confidence and not worry about like a stud right across from you. Not that Jermaine Johnson and those guys are scrubs or anything like that. Obviously, if you're a football player, you're not a scrub. But it would be a lot harder if Hassan Reddick was going after you every single time. So hold on one second. Alexa, turn off. I got to stop that thing at 6:35. I don't know why that's working. It's Alexa. Coming into this, a lot of old friends, everything, obviously. I think the biggest question is just going to be, what Aaron Rodgers looks like. But I will ask you this. We talked about Breece Hall. We talked about the 49ers run defense. I don't know what to make of the run defense based on preseason. And there's not much that you can really take away from it. Now, last preseason, they didn't look great in run defense. And we just said, this preseason. It carried over in moments because other moments they would be very stingy. The run fits were fine. But I'm interested to see what Sorensen and Staley have up their sleeve to shore that up and try it, at least in games, while you're not going to show it, during the preseason. So Breece Hall presents a really interesting challenge for the 49ers out of the gate, especially considering, for the foreseeable future and forever how long it takes, Dre Greenlaw won't be there. Now you want to see what you have in Malik Collins and can Javon Hargrave just give you a little bit more in run defense, even though he's known more as a pass rusher. The run defense is very intriguing, in my opinion, because Breece Hall presents such a challenge because he's so good.
It's one thing I was disappointed in Javon Hargrave last year because, I mean, he was a straight up nose tackle coming out of college, 320-pound wide body, and played that zero technique straight up nose tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers early in his career, and then kind of transitioned into more of a 3-tech and it turned out he was a better pass rusher than people realized in Pittsburgh, and then got a little bit of free agent money and went to Philadelphia, and they started utilizing his ability to penetrate a little bit more and more. But I still thought he was going to be better against the run. And I think there was maybe, some coaching aspects of that as well. So we'll see if the scheme tightens that up and the run fits are a little bit better for the 49ers, but it's something the 49ers have to be better at. Nick Bosa said that he thinks it's the best defensive line they've had, and it's better than last year's defensive line. I don't know about that. I don't know if I love the depth of the defensive line, and I'm still interested to see how it comes together because Malik Collins, we've barely seen him in the preseason, but he looked okay. He looked pretty good on some plays. It's like, okay, might be a ball player. Is he a step down though from Eric Armstead? Because Eric Armstead was awesome for the 49ers. How good is Javon Hargrave going to be? Is he better than he needs to be better for what he's paid than he was last year, even though he wasn't bad, but he could be better. And Leonard Floyd, was on like his 9th team for a reason. He's not a superstar edge guy, but he's a pro. So the 49ers have some pros out there in their first unit. Are they going to be dominating? So the 49ers have built this whole thing on their defensive line. And so that's one of the interesting things for me early to watch this team is how that defensive line comes together. How does the second group look? And did they potentially take a step back, or is Nick Bosa right? They're going to dominate again up front on that defensive line because it's the one thing that you could hang your hat on with these San Francisco 49ers teams in the Lynch Shanahan era is the defensive line is going to be awesome. And it's going to make life difficult for every single team they go up against. And if that falls off, that hurts the entire team.
Yeah. And the funny part about the 49ers defense is they don't have to turn into a top 5 stingy run defense to improve. It can just be a little improvement, right? Like, and I think
things a little better, clean up the tackling, clean up the run fits a little bit. And you're good.
Yeah. And that's the thing is when you couple the fact that I agree with you, I think this defensive line is the least deep it's been, since 2019. Right. But it'll be interesting to see how they get this done, especially if Gross Models can get in here. Obviously they added Jordan Elliott and Malik Collins, and you don't just replace Eric Armstead. I know, guys, he didn't play a lot and you guys are angry. He made a lot of money, but when he played, his impact was evident, especially in the run game, everything, right? It's just a matter of when he played. But it's interesting because they've taken this philosophy towards the secondary now. And I'm going to float this to you because I spoke about this. I forget. I think it was Brian Rennick of No Huddle on 49ers Web Zone. The 49ers kind of have taken this stance in this offseason of, we've leaned into the defensive line and we want to build this inside out. But in the biggest games, they don't call holding on our guys. They don't get to the, they're not getting. So we need cover guys now. Now let's try. Like we have a line which, we can get to the quarterback. We can apply pressure. But in the bigger games, namely the Super Bowl, the coverage has to save you a little bit more. Dare I say this defensive line is going to see some coverage sacks with how deep this secondary is and how good the outside guys are. And now the idea that Yadam is going to play outside and Lenore is going to go inside.
Yeah, or you've got to come with games and find different ways to get guys loose and not just win one-on-one, because even the best defensive lineman can be thwarted if the other team's allowed to hold them in those one-on-one situations. So, no, it's a good point. And I never really thought of it that way with the coverage aspect where you're going to have to lean on that. But I think the 49ers in the past have leaned more on the defensive line to make up for the back end. And maybe it's smart of them to say, look, we're going to spend a little bit more money and some resources on the defensive backfield, make sure we can cover guys up as much as possible. And ideally you have all of it. But I wonder if it's part of a philosophy shift. And what if, maybe that's a Sorensen Staley thing. Who knows?
Yeah. And again, I think we really can't complain with this defense with how good they are, with how they've built it. If you're going to build it from the defensive line, that's fine. Right. But in the bigger moments, you're going to have to cover. Now it looks like, all right, the 49ers face the Chiefs again. God help you now, because you have to cover Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce now, and you still have that guy back there who makes magic. You have to find a way to limit those guys and be able to cover on the back end, because Mahomes is so good at evading pressure and getting the ball out in crazy ways. Now you're making it, yes, we can get pressure, but we're going to be able to cover a little bit longer, 2, 3, 4 seconds. We feel better about that. And maybe if he gets off a read here, gets off a read there, somebody can get home. A lot of that starts on the outside. So I think them changing their philosophy for me, it's encouraging, because you're not going to do the same things over and over and wish for a different result, right? Definition of insanity. But you get yourself guys that, one, are willing to tackle, but when you already had the coverage guys that you did, Mooney already had such a great year and Lenore has already been great, and you add with Ronaldo Green and everybody has the rave reviews of him, and Yadam feels like a guy who last season feels like more what he's going to be as opposed to what he was before. I just enjoy the idea that they've changed things up a little bit because they don't want to keep trying to do the same things over and over because it hasn't resulted in what they want. But we complain when they're in the game like almost every single year?
No, not at all. And look, maybe the 49ers need a better tight end too. Like Isaiah Likely is making the Chiefs secondary look silly, making both safeties just grasp at air on that little touchdown run after catch. That was fun to watch. By the way, speaking of secondary, do we have an update on Hufanga? Because it wasn't reported that is he practicing in full?
No, he's still limited. And I was looking at that as well, too. That was part of the article that I wrote for Niners Nation. I was talking about the secondary. Again, limited is good because it doesn't necessarily put him on track to play, but it gives him a chance. Now, can the 49ers get by with George Odom in this week 1 game? I think so. And when you talk about longevity and what you need down the stretch, I'd rather Hufanga miss this game and get back to health because I think you still can, even though Garrett Wilson is a stud. You're absolutely right. And he travels everywhere. He's going to play X. He's going to play inside. They added Mike Williams, who's going to go down the field as well, too. I think you can still get by with George Odom because he is a veteran. They do trust him. And it doesn't put you in a spot where you have to, like, put Hufanga in a pressure-filled situation of, like, fill this spot right now because I do think Jair Brown is going to have a huge season, which is it's not really me going out on a limb at all.
As much as I like the rookie Malik Mustafa too, rookie against Aaron Rodgers week 1. So it's probably going to be Odom. It's going to be the veteran player out there if it's not Hufanga, but no Drake Greenlaw, no Hufanga. You can start to paint a picture of like, okay, man, Garrett Wilson could get loose and potentially have a really big game with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. And that's one of the things that scares me in this matchup. Like I talked about Debo earlier. If you could just give me the stat lines, what Debo's going to do in this game, what Garrett Wilson's going to do in this game, I think I would have a pretty good idea of what the outcome is going to look like. And I would hope to not see something like 11 catches for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns for Garrett Wilson.
And again, all right. So everyone just says, hey, we've got to slow this guy down. Well, there's going to be players that absolutely get theirs. You want to slow them down, but it's about minimizing. It can't be like these back-breaking plays from those players, right? So if Garrett Wilson has a good game, but nobody else does, I think you're in good shape. You can't let anybody else get off because I think Garrett Wilson's still going to get his. I think Lenore is fine. And if he matches up with him in the slot, I think that's going to be a great matchup. I still believe Garrett Wilson's a great player. And if Aaron Rodgers is that guy that can still spin the football, he's going to get the ball to him in a spot that he needs to. So I think, again, you're really in a position where it's like, who can we not let us, let them beat us with, right? Like, and I think Garrett Wilson is going to be a guy that still gets catches, but it can't just be for like, where he's just dominating the whole game. And I don't think that'll be the way that it goes, especially because I thought you brought it up. I think you brought it up. Sorensen, defensive back guy, Staley, defensive back. I think the emphasis is just on coverage now. Right? And I think that's what they're trying to switch with everything in terms of how they built this defense in years past.
So in the chat just said that you look like a East Coast version of Ricky Pearsall.
If I had a nickel, man.
Not bad. I could see that.
Have you got a nickel, man?
Okay.
No, I've heard that. As soon as he was drafted, they were like, we drafted Jason Aponte. I'm like, come on, man. Am I Austin Rivers? Am I Ricky Pearsall? Am I like, come on, like what?
Who's the hip hop dude or the R&B dude that people used to say?
John B.
John B. That's what it was. Yeah.
John B. I've been hearing John B. since I was a child. Like that's always been one of the but it's either him, Austin Rivers, and now Ricky Pearsall. But it's good that we can joke about Ricky Pearsall now because he's doing so well and everything as well too. Looks like he went out there yesterday at the practice and was just standing around like almost like chomping at the bit, wanting to get out there, man. Like they would have had to probably save himself from himself if he tried to like run out there.
Dude, he told Kyle Shanahan he was gonna play against the Jets.
After I'm good. It's a scratch. I'll play Monday, right? Like I think look, again, the 49ers have a chance to do something really cool. And what I mean by that is out of a terrible situation, they have a chance to kind of uplift a little bit, and have him be out there. They don't do the boombox at the crib. They do it on the road. But if Ricky leads them out, something like that, it really could just be like a sign of like team camaraderie. And it's funny because Trent talked about that, where Trent said, I kind of really wanted to get back right after, we found out about the Pearsall thing to kind of rally the guys. And it could be such an awful situation that has such a great outcome, in terms of everything that could happen. But it could be something that galvanizes this roster and changes the vibes a little bit because it was so negative all offseason.
I can't remember how it works week 1. Do they do like a big entrance where they all like come out separately?
I think they announced them one by one,
Yeah.
Or they could just forego that and just have Pearsall run out and have them all follow him.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to be beholden to any sort of, I don't know what tradition when it comes to something with the circumstances surrounding this, if you really wanted to do something cool like that.
Yeah, it does feel like a rallying point for the 49ers, and it feels so much different than it did a couple of weeks ago. I would if the game was played last week before all the signings and everything, I would have been like, yeah, I'll put money on the Jets, and especially with the 49ers favored. But now I just 4.5 points, I think it is, I saw today. I do really like the 49ers because the vibes just completely flipped. And, hopefully the team's ready to play, and Trent and Ayuk and McCaffrey are close to full go, because it's important to have all those guys out there and all those weapons, and they can still win without those guys being, playing 100% of the snaps. But it's just so important to have Trent back and have that leadership, and the vibes couldn't have flipped harder for me with the 49ers. I really like the way this team feels coming in the year, and Frank Gore getting inducted into the Niners Hall of Fame at halftime too. So lots of great vibes.
Jets legend
at the stadium. Yeah.
So, all right. So we've got maybe 7 more minutes. All right. I wrote an article about the last time that the 49ers played the Jets, which was 2020, week 2, off of the week 1 loss to Arizona, empty stadium in MetLife. First play of the game, Raheem Mostert goes to the crib. Leading rusher in that game, Frank Gore. Brandon Ayuk made his first catch in that game. Jimmy Garoppolo was lights out in the first half and then gets hurt. Mostert gets hurt. Bosa gets hurt. Thomas gets hurt. Sam Darnold didn't know that he was auditioning for his new favorite team, or his new team in that game either. He makes a highlight play in that game. It's just looking back and the parallels to everything, and it's just like how many guys are switching sides and how different they kind of look. It's just kind of funny to go back and look at that game and just think, man, these teams have been in opposite directions, and now they're kind of they're a little bit closer than we'd like to think in terms of their build.
I mean, it's the blueprint, right? Like, obviously everyone wants to get a great quarterback, and sometimes it's a very difficult thing to do. And we've seen how difficult it's been for the Jets. The 49ers went through some weird process to end up where they are with the quarterback. But man, build around a defense, add playmakers. There's so many similarities to the way the 49ers and the New York Jets are built, how they play, how they want to play, how they win. And so that's what makes this game so fun. And it truly is good on good. I think they both have dynamic offenses. I think they both have really good defenses. I think they're both well-coached football teams. And so, I can't wait for this one, man. I'm excited. And I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk for the 49ers. I like their chances on Monday night. But a primetime game, Monday Night Football, first week of the season, vibes extremely high all of a sudden, Jason.
And what's funny, too, is going into that week 2 game, no Deebo Samuel, no George Kittle, no D Ford. I'm like, this team, and we start to think back of all the injuries. 2020 was just a strange season, but that was the last time that they played.
Disaster season. Yeah.
Yes.
And knock on wood, hopefully this season doesn't come anywhere close to that. And look, the 49ers did have really good injury luck last year, too. It's kind of an underreported factor of the 49ers. Last year, you're going to have to go through some ups and downs. You're going to lose some key players throughout the year at some point. Hopefully nothing too big, but the 49ers are going to have to overcome some things. Like the offseason, we can say, okay, that's done and that's over. There's going to be more drama this year for the 49ers, as good as they are.
Right, 100%. Again, you lose Deebo and Trent for 3 games. All things considered, you lose all 3 of those games. All things considered, you were fine. And then you get to the Super Bowl, and obviously the unfortunate injury with Drake Greenlaw, even what was it, Daniel Bullock tore his Achilles in that game too. It's just geez, man, what else was going on in this game? It happened at the wrong time, but all things considered, they were healthy all year. And I don't think you could ask for anything. I think that's what makes last season a little bit more frustrating in my eyes, is that you you probably can't duplicate that sort of injury luck again, especially considering the years past.
You have the lead in the Super Bowl, man. Like, how many times? Like, you got
all right,
and again.
Enough. That's it. We got a few more minutes, but I want to. We should just get to a prediction. That's it. I'm going to put you on the spot. You go first.
I'm having a tough time trying to figure out if the offenses are going to go off, if it's going to be a high-scoring game, if it's going to be a grinded-out game, a lower-scoring game. And I think I'm going to go with the defenses winning out here, and it's a little bit more of a grinded-out game, especially early. Some of these early season games are a little like extended preseason games. These guys haven't played a lot of football, and the 49ers have some guys they're gonna have to ease into the lineup as well. So I think this one might be a little tight before the 49ers do hit the accelerator late in the game and are victorious by 6 points on Monday Night Football. I'm going to give it something like a 20-14 score. 49ers win.
Damn it, Brian. I got a 21-14. And I think, again, it's going to come down to the 49ers shutting down the Jets at the end of the game. It is going to be tough. And I think this is a game where if Brock's numbers aren't sterling, it shouldn't indicate to you that he's not growing, because this is a game for him to fully show his growth in terms of recognition pre-snap and being able to get the ball out on time and understanding what he's seeing with the coverage. It may not be pretty, and it's not going to be a game where he throws for 300 yards or he has splash plays, but the incremental improvements can be seen watching the game. And I think this is one of those games, especially against this defense, where Brock can start to show that little stuff, even if it doesn't bear it out in stats. Stats are great, but if I start to see a guy who's sliding protection the right way, sees the free rusher, throws into the blitz, is getting the ball out on time, understands the limitations of what's going on in the offensive line, whether it's in the middle of the offensive line or to the right, and he starts to play better, that's going to be the thing that I'm looking for in this game. And that's what is going to be the real indicator of his progress. It's not going to be stats. It's going to be super hard to duplicate what he did last season because he was incredibly efficient. But if he has a down year in stats from last season, you can still look and say, he's growing as a quarterback. I feel more confident in him now than I ever did.
I'm going to change my prediction 23-17, so we're not so close. I'm going to give him a couple more points here. So 23-17, Niners still win by 6 in this one.
Bang.
Can't
Perfect.
wait.
Can't wait, man. Hey, look, we're locked in. Off season's over. We turn the page. Week 1 Monday. Enjoy your football today. Brian, tell everybody where they can find all your stuff and everything that you've got going on.
Yep. At BD Peacock on Twitter. Subscribe up to Locked On 49ers. Me and my guy Eric Crocker are talking about the Niners every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network. I also do an NFL show at Locked On. It's called Peacock and Williamson. It's me and former NFL scout and ESPN scribe Matt Williamson. We cover the entire league daily. And of course, this show being simulcast on OT with BP, Overtime with Brian Peacock, my extra overflow podcast where I can do fun things like this, like talking to Jason and do whatever I want, whenever I want, in addition to the Locked On stuff. So make sure you're subscribed everywhere.
Absolutely, guys. And enjoy your football today. Packers, Eagles at 8 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Western time. You know, you guys, Pacific time, you guys have the best luck, like when it comes to all these games, you know, but today's Friday. We have Friday football. And again, like this video, subscribe to both channels, and I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'm going to have Dr. Narav Panja on, and he's going to talk in depth about the injuries and everything that can happen. It's always a good listen. So, you know, when you guys are done, you know, tap back in 5 minutes, and I'll have you guys out in time so you can enjoy your football. But Brian, as usual, it's great to talk to you, man. It's great to be talking football. And as always, go Niners. Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte.